So I wanted to make this video for those of you who are interested in mental diets, specifically the 7-day mental diet of Emmett Fox. I'm going to put the playlist above of a whole mini course I did about the 7-day mental diet. I did it a while ago. It's a very good mini course, I think, if you're interested in trying the 7-day mental diet, or even if you've done it before. We discuss a lot of the nuances to perhaps make it even more helpful if you're to do it again or to try it for the first time. And this video is actually going to be part of the playlist. I think it's that important in regards to being a helpful part in addition to this course. Because since we did that playlist, over a year ago, or I think it was over a year ago, I've had many people reach out to me saying that it was helpful. And I've just spoken to a lot of people about the 7-day mental diet of Emmett Fox. For those of you who have not watched any of that stuff or never heard me speak about it, I think the 7-day mental diet, as described in this very short pamphlet by Emmett Fox, is one of the more profound and effective law of attraction, law of assumption, whatever you want to call it, techniques to quickly see a shift in your life. Now, this shift in your life isn't necessarily going to mean there's going to be this gigantic outward demonstration, but it does mean that you should feel differently inwardly and react differently to things after 7 days of doing this, often within a few days of starting to do it, than you were prior. It can be a very dramatic thing. It's just a phenomenal exercise to work with your reactivity and to understand your reactivity better. So I do recommend it if it sounds at all interesting to try out the 7-day mental diet and to look at that mini course we did as well if you think it would be helpful. I want to make this video because I have noticed myself, I've done the mental diet a couple times since I made those videos. And one thing I've noticed the few times I've done it since then, and then speaking to many people, an important point that I think will make it easier for a lot of you to do the mental diet, especially a lot of those people who say, you know what, Tim, I'm really interested in the mental diet, trying it out, but I'm not able to do it for more than a day or two before I fall off of the wagon, so to say, and so to speak, and, feel like I have to start again. I've never been able to do more than a couple days. Now, interestingly, when people can only do a couple days of the 7-day mental diet, most of the folks I talk to still seem to have positive experiences, even if they can only do it for a day or two. It is that, effective at changing how you react to things, that even if you're able to make it through a couple days and then stop and then, are unable to go forward, it still does something. So please don't beat yourself up if you find that, you try a 7-day mental diet and they're only able to do a couple days. But this is the thing. This is what I want to point out in this video. I think Fox, personally, the directions he gives do not take into account your somatic bodily responses to things as much as they could. In other words, I bet you that some of you that are struggling getting through to 7 days are being too harsh, too self-critical of what you're dwelling upon. In other words, you think, Fox basically says any negative thought that comes to your mind, you want to be non-reactive towards it. In other words, negative thoughts might come to your mind a lot, perhaps seemingly throughout the whole day, especially when you start the 7-day mental diet. And the whole point is to not dwell in those thoughts. The negative thoughts are going to come, but you are not supposed to dwell in them. Again, he gives this great metaphor of if you have a fire and an ember from the fire shoots onto your sweater, if you wipe it off your sweater right away, that ember is not going to create a hole in the sweater. But if you wait even a second or two, there's going to be a hole in the sweater and, it's going to need mending. That's how you're supposed to treat your thinking for 7 days. It's difficult. No one's saying it's not difficult. But what I'm saying here is that I bet you that a lot of you are doing a pretty good job of not being reactive to your thinking. But somatically, emotionally, you might feel beaten up or quote unquote, sad or upset, especially the first few days of doing this. Like your body does not feel good. And you interpret that as you having fallen off the diet when you have not. See, I personally just don't think that Fox was aware of the mind-body response to some of this stuff, the somatic response, as we like to call it today. And, there's all these therapeutic modalities, books like Waking the Tiger by Peter Levine, Internal Family Systems, which we always talk about, which talk about how, basically the body has this trauma response, or there's these parts or feelings in the body that are very deeply ingrained. And when you do the 7-day mental diet, they are probably going to be stirred up. They are going to react to your lack of reactivity. So the negative thoughts are coming, and you might be doing a really good job noticing the negative thoughts and not dwelling in them in the way Fox says. But these feelings then really might be stirred up, and you might feel very uncomfortable. And I have a sense that a lot of you who think you're not doing the diet right, you are doing the diet right. You are not letting the thoughts, you're not dwelling in the thoughts. It's just there's a lot of emotional somatic response coming up as well, that you are like, oh no, that means I'm doing the diet wrong because I'm dwelling in these bad feelings. You're not. The feelings are just there. The feelings are just there. They're processing the lack of reactivity you're giving your thoughts. So it's all good, is what I'm saying. If you've tried the 7-day mental diet more than once or twice and you feel like you can't make it through more than a day or two, you should be more lenient with yourself and try to make it through to 7 days. Now, obviously, if, you see yourself reacting thought-wise in a very negative way, you're off the diet, right? If I go into the house and my wife left some dishes uncleaned, and then says do these dishes, and I snap at her for that or something like that. That's going off the diet, right? But if I go in the house and there's dirty dishes and I see my wife, and my wife says, please do those, and I feel a trigger, but emotionally, mentally don't react to it, but the body still is triggered, but I don't react to that trigger, but just notice how I feel emotionally and all the stuff that's coming up, I'm still on the diet. And that's a very simple example, but the thing is, you're going to go through these feelings and these emotional triggers, these parts acting up throughout the 7 days. And you can be more lenient, I think, than you assume. And I think you can be more lenient than Fox says. I've spoken to a lot of people. Fox makes these really grandiose claims. He says the 7-day diet's harder than doing a 30-mile march each day or something like that. That's kind of overblown. Yeah, that might be the case, whatever. I don't know. All I know is it's helped me a lot. It's helped a lot of people I've worked with. It's helped a lot of people who have watched the playlist videos that have made comments just by practicing being less reactive. And if you have weird feelings, that's all good. However you feel is okay. You're not dwelling in negativity by having, tough feelings. There are no negative feelings if we're looking at this from a more somatic response way. If we're looking at it from an internal family systems way, Richard Schwartz always says there are no bad parts. All these emotional responses are not you negatively dwelling in bad thoughts. It's you processing them. So give yourself patience, give yourself space. I hope this makes sense. If it doesn't, by all means, feel free to contact me or comment in this video so I can clarify it for you. The 7-day mental diet is one of my favorite short-term techniques to use to just change my perspective. And I definitely think it's a great tool to experiment with if it intrigues you. So I hope this video encourages you to do so. I can be reached at radicalcounselor.com.